thankfully you set up a transfer rate. All right. Oh no. Yeah, put that.
Welcome to episode 2 of Cash Me If You Can. Welcome, pleasure to have you here, mate. And I think to maybe set the scene, always great to start on the backstory about how we met.
So my name is Nirav Smith. I'm Strategic Projects Director for STA. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with Nirav today where we talk about all things universities, education and payments, but more importantly, what we're doing together to address the current challenges that universities face in those spaces.
Things we can and can't say. So I'm going to go over to you on that one.
Thanks for throwing me that one. You just stay out of the potential legal minefield.
Welcome to episode 2 of Cash Me If You Can. I am honestly genuinely excited about this episode, and you'll realize very quickly why. I'm also really pleased to have a special guest and a friend, Graham Smith from STA, who will be joining us today. We're going to be talking about all things student payments and universities. So looking forward to explaining a little bit more around this space, and I hope you enjoy it. Maybe now over to Graham for a brief intro.
Thanks, Nirav. I call your excitement was because I'm here, but we know it says I'm more excited to talk about student payments in universities, but I understand that, and I am too. So my name is Graham Smith. I'm Strategic Projects Director for STA. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with Nirav today where we talk about all things universities, education and payments, but more importantly, what we're doing together to address the current challenges that universities face in those spaces. STA have been in the debt collection business, working in the university sector for over 25 years now, and have pretty much all universities across the UK using them for their debt collection, chasing students for payments when those students have left the universities. What we're looking to do now is move into a space where we can help universities avoid payments becoming debt and help them get students to pay on time more easily and help them reconcile those payments much more quickly. And we'll look forward to telling you a little bit more about that today.
So, Graham, welcome. Pleasure to have you here, mate.
Thanks.
And I think to maybe set the scene, always great to start on the backstory about how we met and things we can and can't say. So I'm going to go over to you on that one.
Thanks for throwing me that one. You just stay out of the potential legal minefield. Look, who would have thought, I think it was probably 18 months ago that we sat down over a Chinese in Mayfair.
That's right.
And we'd never met. I'd spoken to Omar. We were talking about two different businesses. We shall remain nameless, or else we'll have lawyers talking to us very quickly. We were talking about the education space. And certainly the business that you were at were looking to move into the education space. The business that I was at, I'd sort of built the proposition for the education space over the previous 5 years, and I was offering my services. We got put together by a mutual friend, Alex at MB Partners. I think we should give him a shout out.
Big shout out to Alex at MB Partners.
You don't need to pay for that, Alex. We'll do that one for free. So he put us in touch knowing that there were potentially some synergies there. And at the time, it seemed like there were. And then obviously events transpired that we both parted ways with those companies, and we'll leave that there.
Absolutely.
And we ended up at two new companies. Obviously you here at Transact World, and me at STA. And lo and behold, again, we both wanted to do more stuff in the education space. STA already in there. You guys wanted to move into that space, and that merely Mayfair has either got a lot to answer for, or has been a real positive sort of turning point for both of us in terms of where we're going to head with our respective businesses.
I would concur with everything that you said. I think it's about timing, and the timing's been great. It's been a pleasure to obviously we've just kicked off this relationship. It's been an absolute pleasure so far. I'm really looking forward to diving into this deeper.
Yeah.
So as you've set the scene perfectly, I think we should jump straight in.
Let's go.
So let's start with STA. It's an organization. You've been in the higher education space for a number of years. What are you guys doing? How does it work? What are you seeing? Kind of general outlook.
Yeah, look, STA, you're a really interesting business, and one that I admired for. Well, I've been involved with STA for probably about 3.5 years now. So in previous lives and previous businesses, built partnerships and integrations with them, and it was always a business that I admired because well, let's be really clear. Debt collection is not a business that generally has positive connotations around it. Well, I looked at STA and observed the way that they interacted and built relationships with their customers, and it was absolutely unique by the trust and credibility that they've got with their customers, specifically in the university space. And we do work outside of that, but it is our core business. Universities trust STA implicitly, and that's proven by the university debt forums that STA have run for now 15 years, I think, where we get pretty much every university across the country coming to different locations, sharing best practice, engaging in conversation, working with their peers in other universities to find solutions to what's going on in the universities as a whole, in the finance teams.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but just, I mean, I've had that experience, the pleasure of that experience. And honestly, being in the room, you're not pushing a sale, you're really listening. I think we've got and STA have got a great handle on where the pain points are.
Yeah.
And there is, having been to kind of 6 or 7 forums now, there is an underlying theme that is underpinned by payments, underpinned by manual processes. So it really is, again, I go back to timing. The timing couldn't be better.
Yeah, I think so. And look, our core proposition at STA, and I say like I've been there years. I've been there 3 weeks, but doing a bit of consultancy over the last 4 months has brought me close to them, but officially started 3 weeks ago. But we've had the privileged position of being able to listen to universities for, as I say, 15 years in these forums, talk about the challenges. And those challenges have changed and evolved and progressed, but some of them have stayed consistent. And I know Matt, RMD, has for a long time wanted to try and address some of those. And, I had conversations with Matt about STA becoming a payments company.
Sure.
And I quickly told him, you're talking 5 years of pain and misery. And red tape and hoops to jump through. And that's when sort of we started looking as an organisation for a partner. And thankfully you set up a transfer. Sorry, oh no. So STA were looking to become an actual payments company. And I told them that the amount of red tape and hoops that we'd have to jump through just wasn't feasible, wasn't a viable option for us. Thankfully, you turned up at TWPayz, looking to get into the education sector at a perfect time. And, we've obviously done our due diligence, you've done your due diligence. And for us, it's absolutely brilliant to have such a great partner from a tech perspective and a payment perspective to want to come on board in this kind of thing that allows us to take our relationships, credibility, trust, standing with the universities, bring you in as a tech partner, and together we've got, I think, the perfect mix to solve the problems that we've been hearing about for the last 15 years.
Yeah, I would completely agree with everything that you said. So kind of putting the shoe on the other foot, if you like, we'd obviously, or you gave me the exposure to higher education or that student space prior to TWPayz. So it definitely lit fire. And then it was kind of understanding, right, if we try and do this as TWPayz alone and we're going university by university, do we really ever crack that nut? Yeah. Like you said, you've got the relationships, you've got the history, you've got the understanding, there's a transparency piece. So I think the values align. I keep going back to that word timing. The timing's been fantastic, which makes things really work. So from our perspective, it's right, we've got a partner that we really kind of then mirror our values, which is a huge part of why we're kind of entering this space. And I think with what we've got planned, we're gonna absolutely smash this industry. It's my genuine gut feel, and we're gonna not solely do it like others and kind of profit focused. This is really solving a problem in this space that's been inherently there for a number of years.
And you've touched on something that's really important there. It's something that I've talked about, obviously, at the forums over the past 3 weeks, and our final one for this round is in Manchester next week. I'll be spreading the same message that STA is built upon foundations that are there to solve challenges for our customers. We are absolutely customer focused and customer centric in everything that we do. The forums being a great example of that, as you've already touched on. They're not a forum for STA to go and talk about, apart from in the last one where we've stolen 30 minutes to talk about STA Pay. But they're a forum that we put on for our customers. Our customers they've been our customers for 25 years in some cases. They're our friends, they're our partners. And we are looking to deliver solutions here, we're not, let's be clear, we're not charities. We're profit organizations. We want to make some money out of this, of course. But money isn't the driver. Certainly from STA's perspective, we are wholly owned internally within the business.
Yeah.
We don't have pressures from investors, shareholders, share prices on stock exchanges. We don't have any of that to drive decisions that might not be customer centric.
Yeah.
And also take decisions on a short-term basis. We're looking for this for the long term. And, there are no real hard pressures on us from a revenue perspective from day one, or day 30 or day 90.
Sure.
This is about building a solution, molding it, as we've seen from, our discussions about the steering board that we're building of really high valued, experienced, trusted people within the university finance sector from different universities across the country to build this proposition. And it will evolve and evolve. And I know we're going to talk about, maybe version 2, version 3, obviously later in this conversation. But we want to build something that solves the problems. And again, we'll probably touch on a couple of examples of where we're holding things back.
Sure.
Because we're not ready to release them because it won't solve the problem. And that was the key bit for us.
It's not about iterating or repeating what's already out there. It's about iterating it to make it solve the issue or the problem at hand.
Absolutely.
So I think that leads quite nicely into the next bit, if you like, which is, again, based on where STA are and they know the industry really well. What do you feel is a reason behind kind of that space, if you like, being so fragmented? Almost kind of maybe something simple like systems just not talking to each other.
I thought there's a few things. And again, I've sort of had the benefit of working in this sector very closely with the people that we're going to be doing business with together. Hopefully, assuming everything goes well. And there's a number of different things at play here. So when I first started working in the education sector 5 years ago, building an accounts receivable automation platform that obviously will be taking sort of that experience into the TWPayz proposition. I got told something very early that in the university sector, you don't get sacked for not doing anything differently. You get sacked for doing something differently and it not quite working.
Right.
So naturally within the sector, there's sort of historically there's been a resistance to change.
Sure.
There's just, let's keep the status quo, even if it's not perfect, we'll just carry on doing it.
It's not broken.
Correct. Well, it kind of is broken.
Yeah.
But it's not broken to the point where we can't do the stuff that we need to do. It just makes it really difficult.
Sure.
So you've got that sort of cultural bit. We've then got a lack of IT resource and support. So IT resource is
definitely a theme, right?
Hugely stretched in universities. So to get things going from an IT perspective is difficult. We've then got multiple different systems doing different things. So a great example of that is when I was doing the accounts receivable automation stuff, there was one university that we worked with who had data coming in from 3 completely different systems. So they had personal email addresses in one system, they'd have university email addresses and some student information in another, and then they'd have invoice information and a bit of student information in another. And to get all those talking to each other is near on impossible.
Yeah.
And then we've got the complexity of the actual student population itself.
Right.
So you've got international students, you've got domestic students, you've got undergrad, you've got postgrad, you've got full-time, you've got part-time. You've got all different ranges of stuff that in some universities, they keep it really simple and the complexity around, we touched on it in York, so the fee table.
Yeah.
So what fees are applicable for what student, what payment plans are available for what student population. Some keep it really simple. Others have just sort of grown and grown this massive complex beast.
Yeah.
So when you put all those things together, systems not really talking to each other, not really doing the job that they're meant to do, culture of not really wanting to try new things,
sure,
and then complexity of student worlds or student population, we've got a mix there of it all ends up becoming manual.
Yeah.
And that's what we see day in, day out with the universities, is that they're still using spreadsheets.
Yeah.
They're still doing mail merges to contact students. It's a nightmare.
It just sounds crazy in this day and age, right? And I think if you also couple that with there's been kind of a curtailment or at least kind of downsizing in resources and all that, the universities, this then kind of doubles down, right? Because then you've got the people that are there running it day to day who are still there, their workload's going through the roof.
Yeah.
There's no kind of light at the end of the tunnel, if you like.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as that, I'm sure. But I think with that, it's just, again, I keep going back to that word timing. It's that perfect storm.
Yeah.
And kind of for us to come in with what we're going to talk about a little bit later,
yeah,
is just a solution that I think just makes sense to solve those underlying issues.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, let's be really clear. There's some, if we're talking specifically about payments, there's some big players in the market already. Yeah, we know them, Convera, Flywheel. We know who they are, and they're good at what they do. Of course, in different ways. We're not going to sit here and say that they don't work. They do. They've worked for years, and universities use them. But what you've also got is two very different landscapes within those two specific organisations. You've got Convera, who have a great payment platform. They've got a real long history with universities, but there's issues around other parts of the proposition. Flywire seems to have everything, or most things, under one roof, but have challenges around integration and systems talking to each other. And this is just what we're hearing directly from universities. So, we've got the advantage here of having everything under one roof, and we're building stuff that's fully integrated. So there will be no gaps. There will be no manual process between systems.
Yeah.
But then, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but then you add on the extra support that TWPayz is going to bring, specifically around what you just talked about then, right? About, I think the number was 37% reduction in finance resource across the universities in the UK last year due to redundancies and cost cutting. Because, again, let's be clear, the university sector is essentially in a bit of a financial crisis.
Yeah.
International student numbers went down. International student revenue is where the vast majority of revenue comes from for universities in the UK. So there's been a reduction in income. There's been a reduction in staff. Now student numbers are starting to go back up again.
Yeah.
But the staff isn't. So correct. So now there's a gap in terms of extra challenge in terms of number of students coming in, but not the same number of staff that were there before to manage that. And then the manual process that exists in a lot of universities. It's almost a perfect time to bring in systems that allow them to do the jobs more easily and automate a lot of the things that currently are manual. But then there is always going to be a piece where somebody needs to pick up the phone and speak to students.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, the solution that we're bringing to the market with that credit control support and unlimited resource to go and speak to students around graduation ceremonies, as they're going to hopefully walk across the stage next week, but they've still got £500 outstanding, and mum and dad are really going to be embarrassed when they don't get to walk across that stage. Let's help them with that by getting on the phone for the universities, as the universities, to speak to students and offer that support to try and get that resolved before it gets to the point where there's a bit of embarrassment.
Absolutely. So look, I think we've set the scene. We've given the room a flavour of where the pain points are. Kind of move on to the solution. So how do we go about really solving this? And maybe I'll kind of, again, throw the ball in your court to what STA are doing, and we can kind of just let that ebb and flow.
Yeah, so look, I'll sort of lay it out here. The TWPayz proposition, and TWPayz is sort of the umbrella name for what we're delivering as a solution here, has got 4 elements. So I'm gonna speak about 3, and then we'll throw it back to you.
Absolutely.
So essentially, we've got 4 elements. We've got a student payment platform. That's your bag.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass it over to you in a second to talk about that, and the sort of the nuances around that and why you guys are great, or the great partner that we've chosen to deliver that. You've got an automated reminder platform. You've got a student portal, and I'm going to break all these down in a second. And then you've got credit control support. The key bit here is the seamless joining up of all those 4.
So just before you dive into that,
Sure.
and maybe a good way just to set the scene, because we talked about the lack of IT resources within universities.
Yeah.
So how we kind of getting over that hurdle initially before you go into the detail?
I mean, a lot. It's the crux of all the design work that we're doing right now. Yeah. So again, we're really fortunate to have had these 5 years working in the education sector. Again, this. Prior to that, working in the automated reminder part of the education sector, I was at one of the payment providers that I've already mentioned previously for nearly 7 years.
Sure.
So I've got a decent amount of experience, both from a payments perspective and automation perspective, and then specifically applying those into the education world. So knowing that IT resources in scarce supply, everything that we're doing is design in terms of our design is trying to come up with a solution that means we don't have to lean on IT very much at all. Well, we're always going to need them to a certain extent, but we want to build a solution that's just really simply plug and play to as much of a degree as we can, so that we don't have to call on that IT resource and hit brick walls from that perspective.
And one of the things that we actually spoke about offline was kind of making that move, if you like, as kind of efficient as possible, So it's just easy for the university. So by effectively building out the systems, which we'll get into detail on shortly, it's simply kind of, rather than pointing this way, just simply point this way.
Yeah.
And we kind of really minimize the legwork and the heavy lifting that the universities have to do.
Yeah. Again, just knowing the sector, we have to be realistic about this. From a payment platform perspective, it literally is a business critical operation for a university, because if students can't pay their fees, the university's got very, very limited money coming in.
Yeah.
It's their main revenue stream. So as a gateway for students to actually pay, it's business critical. I'm not naive enough, you're not naive enough to think that the university is going to go, SDA come up with something great.
Right.
So we'll switch everything else off and we'll put the payment platform in. There's going to have to be a period of time where people see and feel this working and gesting. So that needs to be really simple to implement. Yeah. But we're also not thinking that that's going to replace everything else from day one. Who knows what will happen in the future? We'll see what happens. But the other stuff, we need to make that really simple. So I think in this country right now, there's probably about 14 universities fully automating their accounts receivables process. And what I mean by that, for the purposes of people listening, what is automation? What is accounts receivables? Really, it's just talking about automating the process of communicating with students about payments. Yeah. Now, there's a whole extra layer around that in terms of functionality that is important, but the very crux of it is automating the process of telling students when a payment needs to be made, and then providing them with a seamless journey of being able to make that payment. Then you've got sort of branches coming out around things like, can I have a payment plan? Yeah. Can I raise a query? Can I have a payment holiday? So there's a whole sort of extra layer around it, but the automated reminder platform will just plug into an ERP system via SFTP. We'll stay away from APIs for the reasons we've just discussed, because IT resource will probably not be there to start with for that kind of stuff. But SFTP into the ERP system, pull the data into the automated reminder platform. That feeds into the payment platform that you're going to talk about in a second. Then we've got the student portal. So one of the things that I identified in the last role that I was in through speaking to universities. So a lot of the things I've learned, well, pretty much everything that I've learned and that I'm bringing to the table to help develop STAPay has been got from speaking to universities. It's that I've not thought these things up.
Right.
It's I've listened to the challenges and the problems that they've got and developed, like they're doing with STAPay. And one of the things that was causing them a problem is that because of the reduction in resource in finance teams across the university sector, students contacting finance teams is a major problem. So a lot of, again, just talking holistically about STAPay, what we're trying to do here is provide a solution that essentially reduces the number of times a student has to speak to somebody in finance.
Sure.
That's one of sort of, if we were to list this sort of key objectives of what this solution is to deliver, it's reduce touch points with students. So one of the key things that students, or one of the key reasons students were often getting in touch with the finance teams was, how much do I owe? When do I owe it?
Right.
When do I need to pay?
I just don't know.
But repeatedly. So like not one call at the beginning of the year and that was it. It was like every month, right, do I owe something this month?
Oh, wow.
And that then, if you sort of strip that back, that goes back to why the automated reminder platform is really important. Students don't pay for 4 reasons. Did this analysis. They're never going to pay.
Mm-hmm.
STA Legal will deal with that. We'll deal with that another time. They don't know how to pay. They don't know when to pay, or they've got a problem with payment.
Okay.
We solve those 3 things by having reminders at a timely point in time where we're giving students the right information about how much they owe, what do they owe it for, when do they owe it, and then it's really easy to pay by just clicking this button and going through to the platform to pay it. Then actually we take away most of the reasons needed for students to call in. Yeah. However, some students will read the email and then still decide to call in to finance and have that conversation. So what I identified with universities was it'd be really helpful to have a centralized place where students can go, log in using their university credentials and see their financial position at any given time. Right. So they don't have to rely on a reminder coming. What also happens with reminders is that you have to wait till they come to click the button to make a payment.
Correct.
So students want to pay it
proactively.
Proactively. So the student portal will be somewhere they can go. They can see how much they've paid, how much they owe. what the next payments are. Have they got a payment plan? Are they entitled to a payment plan? What installments have they got? What installments are coming up to be?
Almost like a dashboard, a
Dashboard, yeah. An interactive dashboard where they can do everything that they need to do, like make ad hoc payments, contact finance if they've still got a query, but hopefully they should be few and far between now.
Yeah.
And yeah, just gives them a place where they can access information that up to now would have been a call into the finance team, taking up resource from them doing a job that they needed to do that actually was going to, make a difference to the university. Yeah. So we're trying to strip those number of touch points, back down to a minimum.
So you're reducing the manual intervention that's required.
Correct, yeah. And look, there are always going to be students that do actually need the finance team's help.
Sure.
Genuine students in distress.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is make sure that the university's finance teams are there for those students as and when that time comes.
Yeah. And I think that touches on to quite an interesting point, because I know kind of vulnerable students and vulnerable individuals was a key theme also in some of the forums. And I think allowing kind of those well-being teams to focus on students that actually need it.
Yeah.
So and again, maybe I'm not using the right words, but kind of siphoning away some of those that don't necessarily in that space that actually need the help. So it allows those that do need the help to kind of be there, address their issues, address their problems. So I think, again, the theme is we're listening, we're developing solutions that actually solve problems.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So I'm going to ask Nirav a fairly difficult question. I'm really interested to see how he answers this, and this isn't scripted, so I'm going to put him a little bit on the spot. Nirav, education, huge market.
Yeah.
TWPayz haven't played in the market before. They haven't been in the education sector. What makes you think you personally, what makes you want to enter the education sector? But more importantly, why are TWPayz set up and able to come into this sector and do a good job?
Yeah. So maybe a bit of a tagline that could be controversial, but I think ripe for disruption. And I mean that in a good sense. So as a business, we are very much focused around being customer centric, client centric. And what we see, and I've mentioned it in the previous podcast, that larger institutions are fantastic at scale, but the service and the client centric piece seems to disappear.
Yeah.
So we want to come in there. So we've seen a gap in the market, and I'll tie this back to why kind of HE or higher education, but that's effectively our MO, or the values that we want to bring into play. As I said earlier, I think our initial conversations sparked that fire of there is an opportunity in this space to really make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's the theme that we want to go in with. So the more and more I'm learning and listening in this space, and I think that's actually 9/10 of it, is actually just sometimes shutting up and listening to what the pain points are. And every time I'm hearing something, we've got a solution for that, or we can make your payments journey that much easier.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for 19 years as an organization. We are tried and trusted. For comfort, if it means anything to anyone, PCI level 4. So from a security perspective, that sits paramount for us. So the fact that we're tried, trusted, and we know the space, we know it inside out, we know the pitfalls, and there are so many themes that are coming back in the discussions that we're having that actually shot me in the seat that I'm in the sense that there are other players, and I don't need to name anyone specifically, but they're not taking the ownership, for example, when it comes to things like KYC, AML, and that space.
So those are things that scare the life out of me, and I don't know an awful lot about those because in the worlds that I've been in, certainly the automated reminder space, I didn't need to know about those.
Of course.
I see the worry and the panic on the university's finance team's faces around those kind of things. I hear the pains, and then I look over at you and having these discussions. You're just out there smiling. Right. It seems like you're comfortable with it.
So this is our bread and butter.
Okay.
And maybe let's start at the pain point of what I saw. So the fact that universities need to have, number one, they're under-resourced. Now they need to have a compliance team that's looking at KYC, AML, SARS reporting. They're not a regulated entity in the sense of from a financial perspective, but they are regulated obviously within the kind of student and education space. But they don't have an understanding of how payments operate, the risks involved. The fact that we've been doing this for a number of years, we build our own proprietary systems. We've got our own fraud engines, monitoring tools. We know what to look out for. I mean, there was something really simple that was said the other day, that if a fraudulent card is utilized once, there are systems out there that allow that same fraudulent card to be utilized again. That is completely insane for me, because we've built a smart system that knows the nuances and the pitfalls in this industry, and we plug that gap immediately in the day-to-day. And that's the thing that I want to address kind of really quickly, is that, guys, we've got a solution. We're not inventing this overnight. We've been doing this for 19 years.
Yeah.
We can literally take that pain away from you. Yeah. So going on to why do I smile in the room when someone mentions that? As a regulated entity, I've been in the space for 25 years, lifetime plus.
Yeah.
But the backbone is compliance. So whenever you're in the regulated space, the foundation is set by governance, compliance, risk mitigation. So think of them as the pillars. So our business is built on that foundation. So everything that you build on top of that, it sits on a steady foundation, which allows us to go and explore different industries. Now, the fact that we can offer these new, what seems like kind of new things for the university space, it's just a natural inclination for us to come in there and just help out. So that, I think that's generally my feel on what I've seen in the space so far. The more I explore it, the more and more I get vested into, right, we need to go and just solve this for you. So it's really, again, if I had to kind of tagline it, driven by solving the problem for the universities. I think that's really the space.
I think, look, from a, I guess, a layman's point of view, who I don't know the intricacies of all the things that you've just been talking about there. From a layman's perspective, how I look at it is that essentially it's just a payment platform that is receiving, or somebody needs to go on and make a payment. Usually in a foreign currency, but domestic will be available as well.
Sure.
And whether that's a student making the payment, or whether that's a business making the payment, or whether that's a consumer somewhere else in the world, nothing to do with education, the process is the same.
Correct.
And the foundations that we would have talked about there are the key things that make this a safe, secure, slick platform are the same, whether it's a student or a consumer or a business. It doesn't really matter. The principles are the same, right?
That's it. So again, the reason we're able to branch out and into an industry that we've never been in before is, as you said, those principles are underpinned by all of the same thing. In the end, what are we really focusing on? It's the movement of money, the efficient movement of money, mitigating any risks around AML, CFT, because that's key. So that's something that really underpins the business. We've got, again, we sit on 19 years worth of data that really we utilize very smartly internally. Again, granted, that hasn't been in the education space, but it's been in payments, and that's been in international payments. We're utilizing the same nuances. Now, the other thing that we do also very well is move with the times, because arguably, if you're sat doing something for 19 years, you can very easily become a dinosaur. And I mean that from a systems perspective, from a resting on your laurels point of view. So the key for us, number one, to ensure that we are viable, and I mean that from a long-term perspective. What we're offering is actually a solution that businesses, clients want. So that has to evolve. And the evolution of that is, while we talked about kind of the principles of payments are the same, there are slight nuances, as we're well aware, from a higher education versus a sports space, for example. So it's little tweaks. So what we're never doing is necessarily creating a bespoke platform for a given industry, but the principles are right. And that last mile piece is where we kind of tweak to make it really, from a payments point of view, just to make it work.
And I guess that's where the strength of the partnership and where, you're providing the tech platform that we would never be able to do, or certainly not in the near future, but we can help you. I think that's a great phrase to coin, the last mile piece of making it specific to the university and higher education sector is where we and me personally can bring our experiences to the table to help shape that, the UX to feel how it actually functions. And then you've done all the hard work and the groundwork on the foundations that make it safe, secure, and viable for the higher education sector to use.
That's it. I think the other word to also kind of mention is transparency. And that, again, from our perspective, is key, because transparency by nature will build trust. So we want to be very open, be it the student, be it the university, what they're getting charged, what their options are, whether one payment is going to be more expensive than another payment route. And we'll get into the nuances of exactly what we're offering there. But I think if you underpin it, and again, I'll go back to the values piece again. When talking to you, talking to Matt and the team at STA, the values really mirror what we have on this side. And I think we've got that affinity. That's why the partnership piece makes sense. And now, I mean, even considering all of that, there's still a viable business that we need to put together, so it needs to work. I'm really, really, and you know my views on this, I'm really, really confident about what we're going to be offering. And the fact that we'll give students a choice, you couple that with the automated reminder system that you're giving, it will be a seamless offering that essentially just takes that pain point away from the universities. I'm so excited about what we're going to do here. And I know we haven't even got into the crux of the partnership and how that's really going to be rolled out, but it's a space that the more and more I'm learning, and I am learning every day, the more we speak, the more I pick up, it's without a shadow of a doubt, we are 100% in the right space.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, the partnership, as we've touched on already, the elements that each side bring complement each other really well. And you've got 25 years, did you say?
25.
Yeah, that's right. You bring 25 years from the payments side of things, experience, knowledge, understanding.
Yeah.
I haven't got quite that level of experience specifically in the education sector. But as I say, the things that I learned in the last 5 years and, some of the things that I wanted to do with the automated reminder platform that I've shaped in the past.
Sure.
The learnings from that I'm seeing already are starting to build something even more exciting than I probably could have ever thought would happen.
Sure.
When I first started talking to SDA about this, however many months ago, in my head, there were certain limitations about what we could do with this and how far we could go, certainly in the short to medium term.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to talk about it just yet because we've still got some things to just finalize. But some of the things that we're putting into this platform, certainly from the automated reminder piece, is just going to be mind-blowing in terms of functionality. And, when I pair that with what you're talking about there in terms of your experience, some of the things that we've talked about that won't be available on any other payment platform, it really just comes together to provide huge excitement about what we can deliver. And look, we're delivering for two sets of people here. We're delivering for the university finance teams, but we also need to make sure that students experience. And it's something that, I wanted to talk about a little bit in terms of international students specifically. I think we forget sometimes how difficult the journey of an international student is.
Yeah.
You're
being uprooted, essentially.
We'll take it take it for granted. Maybe that's not the right phrase, but we forget that they're moving to a new country with a new language, potentially, new house, new home, new friends, new food.
Yeah.
You don't know how to get around the place. And then if you add into the mix that if universities aren't communicating effectively with those students, which we know for a fact, and this isn't a secret, a lot of universities aren't great at the communication because they don't have the systems to do so.
Sure.
Paying their bills is going to be a pain and a headache on top of all those other things that are there for them.
You're almost setting them up for failure, right? Unless you're addressing it.
100%. The universities, student engagement and looking after their students is a huge priority for universities.
Yeah.
And it's almost doing the students a disservice if they're not providing as much support to fix those three things that we talked about earlier. Don't know how to pay, don't know when to pay, and if you've got a problem, make it easy to communicate, which our platform will do all of those. It's almost doing them a disservice if you don't provide them with the right communications and make it really simple for them to make those payments.
Yeah, I think if you add to that, and again, going back to some of the themes that were mentioned, kind of using the forums as my kind of Bible at this stage, but nuances within particular jurisdictions. So we touched on India, for example, and there is very much this kind of, you have a relationship with your bank manager and you'd rather drive payments through that channel as opposed to a kind of online channel such as an TWPayz or a TWPayz. So it's really the fact of understanding that nuance. And the only way to understand that nuance is having either some form of presence or connections on the ground in those jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So I think also listening to the challenges on that side, and there is a theme, right? Southeast Asia typically has these challenges inherently, and it's about then understanding that and then providing a solution that addresses that point.
Yeah.
So we touched on kind of bank transfers as one of the questions that came up in India.
Yeah.
And I think I literally whispered over, we've got the solution sorted. So I think the point is that, like, I'm going into these meetings, I'm absorbing a lot.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, it's we have the solution at our fingertips. And it's typically like a phone call away to go, right, guys, this is the issue. Can we solve it in this way? And the response is almost every time immediately been, yep, we can do it.
Yeah.
You'll have it ready in 2 days. We'll be ready in a week.
Well, we do. Obviously, we had the situation in York where we were sat with with Scott from Sunderland, and we were talking about something that you'd heard in the forum and just dropped, I think, your developer a message or you gave him a call, and he'd come back and said, "Yeah, I'll have it built by the end of the day." And you're like, just hold your horses to make sure you do it right. It'll be right. So maybe take a 2-day time scale for it, but to have that kind of support. And look, again, I think it's a really important point to touch on. The level of tech resource or development resource that TWPayz have got, I think, will be unrivaled across the sector in terms of the other players in the market.
I mean, I'll speak from personal experience. I've worked in organizations where to get something done from a tech point of view, please add it to the queue. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Please add it to the queue and it'll get there when the priority is there. And arguably nothing moves. Whereas we've got that resource. No, actually, it's not even a resource. It's the hunger. And I'll explain what I mean is everyone in the room is so excited by this proposition that I've got kind of 1,000% backing from all of the stakeholders. The minute a discussion's had around this, you see everyone's eyes perk up. They're excited about it. It's a new industry. It's nuanced. It's got challenges, which doesn't scare us because ultimately we're in this to solve that challenge. Which is, I mean, it's just an amazing kind of journey to be on. And I'm always a firm believer in it's not necessarily about the end result. It's about very much enjoying the journey as you're on it. And this feels like we're in the seat, buckling up, and it is going to be a ride.
Yeah, it does. And look, we've talked about it in the lift on the way down about how exciting it is that both sides here seem to be wanting to move at the same pace. With the same appetite, the same enthusiasm.
You never ever see that, right?
And look, I wasn't going to give this away. I touched on it before. I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but world exclusive, Matt. Really sorry if I wanted to say this. So we've never used AI in SDA before. It's been talked about, but it's never been implemented. When I came into the business 3 weeks ago, just under, it was labelled a strategic project, of which many things seem to have been labelled strategic projects since I arrived. Obviously, SDA Pay is the main strategic project, but there are a number of other strands under it. And I was asked to look at AI. And 3 weeks later, we've signed a deal with an AI company to bring AI into SDA.
Nice.
And AI will be part of SDA Pay. I'm not going to talk about the specifics, but AI will drive some of the stuff behind SDA Pay. That's 3 weeks from having never done it before.
It's crazy.
To having it now, we've signed a deal with a company to come in and do it, and we're writing the briefs, and it will be delivered in certain areas of the business before Christmas. And others just after Christmas.
So
I've never experienced anything like that.
And that is crazy in itself. So kind of, I mean, again, I'm going back to, I think this was the Birmingham Forum. Someone had raised, and they had a bit of a misconception of what AI is.
Yes.
They kind of called it
automation, grey line AI. That grey area.
So how do you think kind of we bridge that knowledge gap to universities that not necessarily, I mean, you'd argue that they're higher education, so they'd have students kind of really at the forefront of all of this. But there is a bridge to be crossed, right? In terms of how do you upskill or kind of bring that knowledge to the table? I mean, look, in the end, we're ultimately doing it within our ecosystem.
I was just going to say, I actually don't think we need to.
Okay.
I think the only time, so I know specifically the example that you're talking about there, the only time that you'll see people getting bogged down and potentially misunderstanding the difference between automation and AI. And look, there is some crossover, but there is a clear distinct line, is when they're having to think about it for themselves. The whole point of our solution is, we're going to take that away from them. And look, I don't understand AI. Again, I probably shouldn't say that. But I don't understand how it works. I don't understand how I can build an AI bot. Is that the right
model? I don't know, model.
Engine. Yeah, that might be it. But what I understand now from sort of looking into it in more detail is you can put stuff into it and you get an output.
Right.
And it's got a set of capabilities that can, depending on what you put in, will dictate what you get out.
Sure.
That's all we need to do is help the universities and the finance teams understand that we are taking care of that. We are the people responsible for making sure that the solution that we provide, stuff that they put in, i.e. data, information.
And they're concerned about data security, all of that. So no one got to ensure. And again, this is why kind of mentioning PCI DSS level 4, which is kind of the top level you can get. That the systems are underpinned with this level of security. So it's not the sensitive data is getting kind of passed around into an AI black hole, and it then gets kind of spread across the world type thing. It's very controlled, it's very managed. And I think even that message as a whole is just ensuring that, yes, we're doing all of this, but rest assured that it's on the back of a regulated financial institution group that really understands security, data principles, and all of those types of things.
Yeah, and look, we're FCA regulated. So we have to be ultra secure in all different ways. We're ISO 27001 accredited. ISO 9001 as well, I think. The two ISO accreditations. But also from an FCA perspective, we have to be really squeaky clean in terms of managing data, financial practices, all the kind of stuff that goes with the FCA regulation.
So we've covered a fair bit today. I think we've looked at kind of the student's perspective, the solution, the pain points. I guess I want to kind of bring that kind of all together now. And again, I think a key question that kind of still remains is why would a university want to utilize a platform such as TWPay? So maybe over to you on your perspective of that. Be good to get your read on it.
I mean, aside from the fact that we're great guys, and they obviously want to work with us.
We should start with that. We are great guys.
That's the strap line for the proposition. No, but in all seriousness, I think there's a number of reasons. So we touched on all of them, but I think now's the time to sort of bring it all together. So you got, for me, you've probably got three elements as to that would drive the decision for a university to essentially trust us. And I think trust is the right word, to trust us or to trust TWPay to be the solution or one of the solutions that they use for their end-to-end payment journey. And that's where I'm going to start at the end. Start end to end. So we've got everything under one roof. That makes us unique. And when I say everything under one roof, we've got everything from the very start of the journey that students make when they join a university, right the way through to, and we don't want to get to this stage, and if we do everything right in these first stages, the number of students that get to the very end stage, and what I'm talking about there is debt collection and legal, they will start to reduce naturally, organically. So we are going to have students get to that stage. So we're the only organisation and we're the only proposition that does everything in one place, under one roof, from the very start to the very end. So the proposition itself is unique. There's nobody else out there who can offer it. Then you've got some of the other things that we've touched on from a technology perspective. I've been around this sector now, and I've been in the payments world for sort of touching on 13 to 14 years. I've not experienced or been around an organisation or organisations that are moving as quickly and have the appetite to learn, develop and progress as these two organisations, STA and TWPayz, has. It's just a different world for me.
I'd completely agree with that.
And that, that's got to be approached with a little bit of caution. Because we don't want to go off on tangents into different bits of tech that, we think, or not even so much we do, our tech guys, the ones who sit in darkened rooms with, no windows and stuff and high five, thinking it put together a great system that solves all the problems. And then from a user perspective, doesn't actually fit the bill. So we've got to be really careful and cautious about how quickly we bring new technology to the market. And again, going right back to the start of this interview, is it an interview? Podcast? Discussion? Make a chat. Where I talked about that cautiousness in the university sector, about adoption to change and new things. We've got to also be cognizant of that. So the speed at which we're moving and the speed at which we're developing and the resource that we've got between us, I think is a perfect mix to bring a proposition to market that A, is better than what's out there currently because it's end to end, because it's all under one roof, but delivers more as part of the proposition. But it solves the problems. And this is the final part of the puzzle that I think makes all the difference, is that we, STA, and you by proxy now, TWPayz, are in a position where we understand the university's challenges and problems, I think, better than any other organisation. So you cannot deliver a solution if you don't understand the problems.
Agreed.
And I think one of the challenges that universities have had in recent years is that, well, two things. I think the current providers out there don't fully understand their problems. And also either they're not able to, or they've not felt challenged enough to really deliver solutions that fix those problems.
Right.
And a real key example of that is refunds.
Yeah.
We talked about it
that
extensively at the forums.
Yeah.
I still don't know whether it's that the current providers in the marketplace don't fully understand the refund needs of their customers, i.e. the universities,
Sure.
or whether they've just not been that bothered about solving it. Don't know which it is. Honestly, don't really care.
Yeah.
What I do know is that we understand it as a real problem.
Yeah.
And we will deliver a solution. So when you put together the speed at which we can develop stuff, the resources that we've got, the appetite for doing that, with understanding the problems and the challenges, the credibility that STA have got, and that, again, by proxy, TWPayz will have.
Yeah.
I think when you put those together, it's a proposition that universities can't not look at.
Agreed.
And again, I go back to what I said earlier, not naive enough to think that they're just going to go, oh, this looks really shiny, let's get rid of everything else and jump and put it in. Not going to happen, and it would be crazy of them to do so.
Yeah.
But if we can deliver let me rephrase that. When we deliver what we've got on our roadmap, both in the very first iteration and then the following things where there's even more exciting stuff that I know for a fact that the current providers in the marketplace cannot or will not be able to do.
Yeah.
When you put all that together, I think we'll get enough interest that universities will try it.
Yeah.
And I think when they try it, they will see how joined up and simple having one solution in place will be, and how many problems that solves of theirs. And that's going to be the deciding bit.
Yeah.
Does it solve problems? Does it make our lives easier? And if we've done our job right, and there's nobody I trust more than you, Sarah Croft, for me to get your bit, and hopefully you trust me to get our bit right, we will solve their problems. And when we solve problems, universities will use the solution.
I think that's a great snapshot. And again, the theme has been we're solving that problem. We're here to find that solution. And we're also not going to kind of make this out to be this all singing, all dancing solution that won't have its hiccups along the way.
Sure.
Yeah, because I think if we're claiming that, we're kidding ourselves. But what we will be is absolutely transparent in the process. We will iterate fast. We've got that ability. You talked about the resource, the appetite, and the fact that we're listening. So what we're not also going to be doing is this iteration goes out in Q1 of next year, that we're just going to be sat on that and kind of sit on our hands and nothing will happen. It's a continual iteration. We're listening, because the set of problems that are there in this forum, I imagine in next year's forum, there'll be a nuance of those, a whole new set, which again, we want to be open to those and we want to iterate so that we are continually solving. And that's the one thing that I want us to be most cognizant of, if you like, is let's not rest on our laurels. We're just at the beginning of this journey. If we go in with the principles that we've started with and we continue that, and this is a long-term view on this kind of solution, we will not only kind of manage this side of the business. When we talk about phase 2 and phase 3 and what that will look like, for me, it's just a fascinating space.
Yeah.
We want the universities to come on the journey with us. And our aim is to, like we said, solve that solution.
Yeah.
And it feels like this partnership, we touched on it earlier, it's so unique in that we're aligned without having kind of 10,000 death by meeting to get to that stage. There's been an alignment from day one.
Yeah.
And it's just that kind of momentum is building. And that leads us kind of really nicely into when this is going to start rolling out. So we're looking at next year.
Just one extra thing that I think is also really important. Again, we touched on it today, but I think it's really important to reiterate. And this has been really refreshing for me, working with Matt, our MD at STA, and generally the culture of STA. I'm going to call out some names that you might not know so well, but you'll have heard them in the past few weeks. But Colin and Neil, and more recent, they're still in business. Samantha and Sam and Matt. Matt's been in business 25 years. They've just built up this culture and community where their customers know that they are going to get looked after.
Right.
And being looked after doesn't necessarily mean generating revenue. At that particular time, they're being looked after. Everything that STA does for their customers is about delivering a service and value to their customers. Matt is, again, unique in terms of people that I work for, that he doesn't care whether that is about generating revenue for the business at that particular time.
Yeah.
Or at any time in the future. Is the right thing to do by the customer, he'll do it.
Would you say it's kind of relationship driven?
Oh, 100%.
It's a big aspect.
I mean, Samantha, I mean, I've known Samantha for a good few years, but I've never sort of seen her in action. I've watched her at these forums, and the relationship that she's got with her customers is just off the scale. I've never seen anything like it.
Brilliant.
And it just breathes throughout the company, this feeling of let's do the right thing, not what can generate us the most money in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really sort of filled me with joy was that when we were talking about this at one of the forums, and one of the universities said, look, we're in an exclusivity contract and blah, blah, blah. And immediately Matt just said, well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just use bits of it for free. Don't worry about it, because it's the right thing to do. If we're here to support you, because you've still got the debt collection business, that's sort of our core proposition.
Yeah.
We're not going to starve. We'll still make money out of that. And if we can help our customers in other ways, in a time where they can't necessarily bring revenue in for us, we'll still do it.
Sure.
And that's a unique environment that, again, I think it sort of creates this world where hopefully people will see that we are trying to do the right thing for the customers, solve the problems for the customers, not just generate a few quick pounds to put in the bank and then sort of worry about the repercussions after.
It's really funny that you mentioned that. So a big pull for me coming into TWPayz was exactly the same. So both Anupam and Amulya, who are the founders of the organization, kind of live and die on this principle that it's about relationships and about adding value and not solely about revenue generating.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether a conversation started today and there's been nothing for 10, 15 years. It's it's inconsequential. And that's how the principles of this business has been built, which has a big pull in for me. So we've always kind of had this weird alignment without really ever talking about it. And the fact that you brought it up today just shows kind of where that alignment is. And I think that's where the two kind of synergies come in.
For sure, yeah.
And it just makes a lot of sense. All right. Good. Brilliant.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, time to get this going. I think it's been, hopefully for the room, it's been a great conversation. As ever, I have a lot of time for you, my friend. I'm learning as we're going along. As I said, I'm super excited about what we're doing in the higher education space. Hopefully your time with us so far has been all good.
Look, I mean, again, be really clear. Would I be sat here if it wasn't for you? Sure. Chances are not. Yeah. We might have come across TWPayz in some way. We probably wouldn't, because they didn't play in the education space. So you're a big part of why I'm here, and I'm really grateful for that and glad of that, because I enjoy working with you and have done ever since you took me for that really expensive Chinese in Mayfair, though, which I really enjoyed, and I still talk about to this day. So yeah, look, I think we're aligned. Well, we are aligned. In terms of timescales, we're both absolutely aligned there in terms of we want to take this to market quickly, but also, as we talked about earlier, we're going to hold back on things that aren't quite ready yet. Exactly. We're not going to rush them. The last thing I want to do is release something that brings headaches to universities.
Causes more issues than it solves.
Yeah, but let's talk about refunds specifically. All the solutions out there from the people who we don't need to name names of, the solutions cause headaches. You know that. It's a fact. It's feedback. Every single forum.
Yeah.
I don't want to release a refund solution that isn't fit for purpose or just does the same as what those solutions already do and continues to cause headaches. So I'd rather wait 6 months to do that and deliver something
properly.
Correct, yeah. But in terms of the core proposition that we've talked about the forums over the last few weeks, we should be aiming to get that out early next year, and let's see what happens.
Exciting times ahead. It is. So just before we wrap up, I wanted to kind of mention one last question, if you like. What is a successful university starting who decides to kind of utilize a platform next year?
Yeah.
What does a successful first year look like for them in your mind?
It's a difficult question to answer, because I think there's sort of two distinct, maybe even more than two, but we'll go with two distinct, different universities that we could talk about there. For me, a university that doesn't currently have any automation in, is fully manual or pretty much all manual, using spreadsheets, resources down because of redundancies, which is pretty much the same across the board. For a university like that, what success looks like is implementation to start with on a small subsection of your student population or invoice population. So we choose, I don't know, maybe accommodation, and we implement there.
Yeah.
And we get the team and the organization or the institution comfortable with automation. We get them comfortable with new technology.
Yeah.
And once they do that, and I'm speaking from experience here, because again, automation didn't really exist in the university space 5 years ago.
Sure.
we've kind of led the charge in terms of bringing, specifically in finance.
Yeah.
We've led the charge in bringing automation and helping it become more of a common theme or common practice, but taking them through that journey of implementation into a small subset, then rolling out into their wider debt or wider student population, using the full suite of functionality, i.e. automating payment plans, automating queries or having query management centralized, being able to use credit control support at graduation ceremonies, for example, and seeing how seamless that is. So small implementations start, get used to it, get the people who are in the team involved, because there's an emotional element here.
You have to get their buy-in, right?
You do, and there's an emotional and cultural element here where you have to reassure people that this isn't a robot coming to take their job.
That's correct.
This is to help them be more productive. So there's a whole sort of different stages of this that we have to take both the institution through and the people within the institution. By the end of the year, I'd love to see them having all their student communications automated, all their payment plans automated, all payments coming through the TWPay platform, which will be, I'm not going to say at a cheaper rate, but let's just say we're going to make sure we're looking after the students as well as the universities.
And that's key for the engine to run. We also look after the every player in the ecosystem, right?
Yeah. So it's looking after the students as well. So making sure A, they've got a great experience, but B, they're not paying
over the
inflation rates. Yeah. And then they're seeing that automation in terms of the reconciliation back into their ERP working smoothly. And then the final bit is the integration into SDA for the debt collection, should it be needed. So yeah, by the end of year one, a university that's not got automation is getting them to the point where everything is automated. And that will take a year, maybe even longer. And again, that's speaking from experience.
So easy peasy then.
Dead easy, yeah. Dead easy, but we'll be there to hold the hands.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So look, I wanted to say a huge thank you. I think this conversation could have lasted for another 2 hours.
Easy, yeah.
Quite easily. Really appreciate your time. So thank you for coming on board. Thank you for all our listeners. Again, it's been a pleasure talking to Graham, explaining the space and what we're doing. I think the summary is really watch this space and come back soon for episode 3.